And thank you everyone who's joining this session. This is kind of an older session that I've revamped. It used to be a keynote in the Oracle world. I had done it all over the world, and it's very interesting because many folks think that, I guess, my success over the last 20 years has been a simple path for me, and it's not. So they're quite surprised. And what I'm hoping is that it inspires others, that it gives you an understanding that if I can do it, anybody can. And I like that. I like sponsoring folks and mentoring them and seeing others succeed in this world. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Kellyn Gorman. I'm also known as Kellyn Van Gorman because, well, I'm old. I've been around a long time. I am a subject matter expert for Oracle on Azure at Microsoft. Yes, we do that, but I've worked for Oracle as well. I live in Portland, Oregon. I am on a floating home there on the Columbia. And between my husband and I, we have 5 children, ages 31 through 21. So a nice 10-year gap, boy, girl, boy, girl, boy. And I've been a database administrator and a DevOps engineer for about 25 years now. I started out with Oracle and SQL Server. I have always been multi-platform, and I love challenges. So I've always worked in just about every platform that you can think of. I have an interesting history we'll talk about with awards and that, as well as writing books. My first book was in SQL Server. I'm better known for my Oracle books and my diversity and inclusion books. So what is perseverance and why is it important? And we're going to talk about that today, as well as the power in doing. I think we underestimate it often. And this is kind of just, that definition of what perseverance is. This persistence is doing something despite difficulty or delay in achieving success. Many of us forget this. Many of us, say, oh, this person has been so successful. And I recognize that it was really, essential is, we think with our kids that I think at least that I look like a total idiot most days. And when my son, who is now 25, was 16, we were in a disagreement, and he says to me, he says, Mom, you never screw up. You're perfect. And I'm like, what? I screw up all the time. I just don't give up. And you recognize the power in that for my son, Sam, it looked like I was always perfect. And yet I thought I looked like an idiot. So that's where this session kind of comes out of. And we'll start with some history and then we'll go forward. And thank you for saying that I look like I'm 25 years old. My youngest son continues to get plenty of money towards his account because he says that as well. I started out in a very small town in a very rural area of Upper Michigan in the United States. It's that little circle that you see up in the very top there. It's cold there. We'll just say that. I was Canadian by birth and then lived in these 2 areas that you see with that little purple dots in the Sault Ste. Marie, as well as near Manistee, Michigan, and Escanaba. This is where all the French Canadians go when they come into the U.S. first off. So that's where I live. I am the oldest of 3 girls, very traditional oldest child. And I am also the spokesperson for ADHD. And if you want to hear about that, I'll be talking about that on the second, how to be successful with ADHD. I moved away from this area when I was a teen, and we moved to a number of different areas, on the Oregon coast, on the West Coast, then went to the East Coast. My parents just went through their midlife crisis at the same time and decided to move around the United States for a while. So I definitely got a baptism of fire as we moved around and got to learn new areas. But as a child, this saying my mother put up on my bulletin board: anything you can do or dream you can, begin it, for initiative has power, magic, and genius in it. And this is from the philosopher Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. And it really kind of struck, a chord within me. It was something that was so powerful to say, if you were dreaming, and I was a dreamer, I was very much, a daydreamer in that you should begin it, that, doing has power. We forget this, that doing as well as persevering has power, that if you just begin something, it can become something. And for my mother, she didn't think, I thought I was going to be a journalist. She thought I was going to be a president. My second sister, she thought was going to be my secretary. My second sister was a secretary, an administrative assistant most of her career. I went into tech, so I never did really live up to her expectations. Yeah. But I enjoy my life. I have done incredibly well. And we're going to talk about those challenges that I went through and how what perseverance as well as just doing brought to the table that I was able to achieve, even though I started with a deficit beginning out. When I was about somewhere between 19 and 21, this started where I started having some odd headaches. They weren't like migraines. I had had migraines for a long time, but there was just this odd situation where I would have numbness. My visual field would go down on the left side, and I would have a horrible, horrible pain, felt like a knife jabbing through the right side of my head. These happened for a while, and they would go on for 24, 48 hours, and then I would sleep for the next 2 days afterwards. Doctors, it took them quite a while to figure out what was happening, but between these different doctors and specialists, neurologists that came in, they figured out that I was having strokes. And at that young age, nobody's going to think this is happening, but by the time they controlled it, I had 5 documented strokes in 4 years. This was a diagnosis that they finally came up with when I was 26. Some of them were quite severe by the time they figured everything out. It was from a rare autoimmune condition. I've been diagnosed a number of times with lupus and rheumatoid arthritis, and you find out that autoimmune really should be treated more like cancer, that you just have autoimmune, and that depending on where it attacks in your body, it can be different things. It's not like it's all these different diseases. It's just that your immune system is attacking. But there was a lot of permanent damage by the time they got it under control. I had lost 50% of my visual field. I don't see anything. My brain can't translate what's coming from the left side of my eyes, 50% of that. I lost 9 years of permanent memories. Pretty much everything from the time I was 16, 17 till the time I was about 25 is completely gone. I had none of those young adult skills. All the things that you learn as a late teenager, all of my years of college, all of it was gone completely. I had to go through extensive speech and physical therapy. My left side, I had to relearn how to do things using my left hand. I would trip over my left foot all the time. I had to relearn how to walk without tripping. I'd be like, just me being graceful, as I trip on things. And I had to go through speech therapy. My vocalizations didn't match up with my vocal patterns. And then my vocabulary. I still have trouble sometimes coming up with different vocabulary words, or the word that I want to come to mind won't. And that's after it's been now 30 years. This did lead to a lot of frustration. I had to relearn most adult tasks. I had to relearn how to drive. I had damage to my sense of direction. So I would go to drive to work and end up on the opposite end of town. There was no Google Maps then. So, it would have been nice to have it, let me tell you, back then. I had to give up on my career as an accountant. I had gone to school and become an accountant after my journalism degree. I had gone for a second degree. All those years of college were gone. So I had to give up as an accountant, 1, because I could not perform those duties anymore, and 2, because of my left side visual field. It was very hard for me to track an Excel spreadsheet, any kind of spreadsheet work. So I had to start a new career. I had gone into just retail. I was selling shoes. I was trying to learn. I also did not remember marrying my ex-husband. I didn't remember dating him. And I found myself pregnant at that point. I had gotten pregnant during that dark time that, I kind of came out of this. You hear what amnesia is like when you watch TV. It's very different reality. There was, even after my last stroke, there was about 4 months where my brain was just foggy and healing. And I remember more clear memories when I'm about 5 months pregnant with my oldest son. This was this time that I had to kind of figure things out. And so I divorced my ex-husband because, again, I didn't remember dating him, marrying him. I was really a very different adult coming out of these strokes, as well as I was now a single mother of a child. Less than a year after my last stroke, I was divorced, living on my own with a brand new baby. This created a lot of challenges, but this is why we're going to discuss doing as well as perseverance. These are 2 of the most overlooked and underappreciated aspects of success, is that just continuing on to do a little of something, to persevere, and when you fall, to get back up. There's no place to go but up. There really isn't. I remember sitting in front of a display of shoes on a rack at the shoe store, and I literally couldn't organize them by size. Going from 5.5 to size 6, 6.5 to 7, my brain wasn't healed enough to do it. But I sat there for 3 days and kept working on it. I mean, sometimes with tears coming down my face, but I would not give up. And when you look back on that, other things don't seem so difficult. When you know that that was where you came from, you start to have this fearlessness about failure, because you realize that if you can do that, if you can move from there and move on to other things, it's all an aspect of learning. So as we talked about learning with organizing the shoe size, this started to go into other things. I started to learn not to let frustration rule my life. I started to relearn how to balance checkbooks, how to drive the car again. And then I started doing other things. I went from a shoe store where I was selling shoes to I was given the opportunity to go to a computer store and sell computers. I'd never run a computer before in my life. They found out that as my brain healed, I had a knack for not just fixing computers, but fixing software. This knack for software led me to becoming a desktop support person. And because I would take on the things that nobody else wanted to, the challenges, Oracle came in to find out how I was running all these 16-bit Oracle apps on one PC. You weren't supposed to be able to do it back there in Windows 95. Your Oracle home would be set. This couldn't be done. So after they took a look at my scripts and how I was changing the Oracle home and the WinInny, they said, make a DBA out of her. We're really short on DBAs. And my instruction classes, my certification classes, were paid for by one of the groups that I had spent so much time figuring things out for. Others were willing to sponsor me from the time that I invested into fixing their problems. So again, the saying comes back up. Anything you can do or dream, you can begin it. For initiative has power, magic, and genius in it. This is exactly what I was doing. I was just doing things. I was sticking to things. I was working through things. And when we start talking about genius, I can honestly tell you that I may have had a few IQ points to spare from when I was younger, but my IQ definitely went down when I had my strokes. And yet it was a way to relearn. It was a way to heal my brain. It was a way to work through those challenges that I was facing. And the small things became bigger. As I started to accomplish things, I started to get more opportunities to do more. I wasn't afraid to fail. I wasn't, I'd failed so much when I was recovering that frustration didn't hold such a sway over me. I was able to set an example, and I wasn't worried about what other people were thinking. I learned to accept my failings. I wasn't so much of a perfectionist as I had been before my strokes. And it comes down to the fall down 7 times, get up 8. Now, this is an old Jewish proverb. I've also heard it's an old Chinese proverb as well. So a number of cultures get to take credit for this. But if you think about that, what is the difference between success and failure? It's just doing it one more time and getting through it. And that's what was going on in my life. Even if I got frustrated, let's say I had done it 6 times, I might walk away and come back a couple days later and try again. I was never saying, I can't do it. I'll never try again. I'm just not going to try one more time today. Give myself a break. Reward myself. I never punished myself when I failed. What this turned out to is accomplishments that you can look back and see. You may not feel it then, but I break things down. We were talking in the last session about goals and setting goals for yourself. I believe in breaking things down into bite-sized pieces. And these bite-sized pieces, when you look back, become something really, really important. That I went from selling shoes to selling computers to desktop support to becoming a DBA. That I became a lead DBA. And I know a lot of you are going, God begins, what is that? That was my way of making sure that I didn't end up in the corner office. I was making sure that they understood that I was technical, that I was not a project manager, and that they would come and see my black fingernails and go, yeah, so you're our DBA, you're a technical person. That beginning to blog was to ensure that my content was out there, that what I did was out there and people knew about it. And I continued to do this as I started writing more, that people gave me opportunities to write books, that I got awards from Oracle, became an ACE and an ACE director Started mentoring others. It's this idea that as you rise, you lift others. And then becoming Oak Table, which is a group of Oracle scientists. And that's back up to just 2014. This is a very short period of time in my career that I was able to achieve this. I also didn't follow the pack. I had a tendency to say, thank you for your advice or thank you for your recommendations of which way you could go. But I followed my own path and I did my own thing. I found out that when it was something that other people weren't as interested in, it gave me my own space that I could figure things out and do it my own way. There were less assumptions about who I should be. There was more an opportunity for me to follow my curiosity. And I stood out in the field. Even now, which we'll talk about, I do Oracle on Azure and have been able to create a path for myself that many did not know would be there. I was able to do a lot more mentoring and even more so sponsorship. And when we talk about especially women in tech and people of color, we get 4 times more mentoring. We get 4 times less sponsorship. And sponsorship is important when we talk about getting leadership roles as well as people that are, you can't be it if you can't see it. This is how you get seen. So where does determination come into this? Persistence is a power in itself. As I stated, for my children, and I recognize this with people that have said, you're an inspiration to me when I've done, women in tech talks and that they say, you do so much and you're so perfect. I am not. I fail all the time. I just don't give up. I have more chances to succeed. I many times outlast those that stand in my way. Even when we're talking about bias or, these folks that are just there to cause you grief, to stand in your way, I will outlast them. I have persistence. And that is extremely crucial to this. That has been one of the ways that I win. I get more experience. Things that never work. Yeah, they may not have worked the 7th time, but the 8th got me through. And then I'm more part of a larger network. I'm talking to more people and I'm not afraid to be part of that and to tell them what they need to hear, not always what they want to hear, because I have the data to back it up. I have done more things more times. And this really comes in handy that you have an authenticity to your experience because you've done it. And work ethic, I won't lie. I mean, hard work can't be replaced. I do work hard, but I also work smart. I work between 40 and 45 hours a week. People think I don't sleep. Oh, I sleep quite well. I automate everything around me that I can so that I can put my time towards the things that have value. I kill a lot of birds with less stones. Again, automating, consolidating tasks. Anything that is a waste of time, I get rid of it. I like to have, things that make sense. I document, I build automation into it, whatever it takes to make the most out of me. And I have a lot of fearlessness. I stopped letting it rule my world. I find out, and I think you know this, is you start to watch other people and you find out everyone has fear. Everyone is afraid to fall on their face. If you can fall on your face and go, I tried that, I did that, I'll just make sure I don't do it again. You learn from it. That's the most important thing. And it's an opportunity to find more success when you're working through these. And I try to do the right thing. This is, I think, probably the hardest. There might be shortcuts, but doing the right thing is extremely important. And it's not always easy, but I always try to have the data behind me. I never make any assumptions. I never guess. And even when people are like, well, if you just could guess, what do you think is wrong? And I'll be like, I'm not doing the best job for you if I guess or assume. I really need this data. I need some research time. And I'll put the time in the right place to make sure that I have everything that I need to give them the best information or the best results and response that they're looking for. I'm very much about spending my time on productivity. And it's also kind of a protective measure, karma. A lot of people might be busy trying to be right versus doing the right thing. I kind of hold out for karma. I figure somebody is just trying to get back at people. Karma will come back to get them later on, and there's no reason to concern myself with it. So what is the thing not to do? Again, don't let people waste your time, especially if you're a diverse person, either women in tech, you're a person of color. There will be those folks that waste your time. I'm pretty blunt about it, drives some people crazy, but I'll be like, this provides no value to me at this point. I really appreciate that you wanted to talk to me today, but if you come up with something that we can actually, discuss that I can help you with, I'm here for you. And I just leave the conversation. It has annoyed some people. It's their problem, not mine, and I'm good with that. I never get derailed from my goals. I am like a Wolverine when I'm stuck on something. I know exactly where I'm going, my path. And even if I have to pivot a little bit and get back onto the path, I'll do it. But if somebody's in my way, I'll just go around them and keep going. I often don't take any wasted, what do I want to say, wasted words or any BS from anyone. If I can say that and be very blunt. And I never forget the power of collaboration. If there's other people who can help me onto my goal, I find out what their goals are and what they're trying to accomplish. Can I help them? Because, there is definitely power in the people too. I can't do everything on my own. And I don't know where I would be these days if I didn't. And I don't let myself burn out. Like I said, I work 40 to 45 hours a week, and I know when I need downtime and when I need to walk away from something too. I'm an ADHD girl. So if I'm just pounding my head against something and not getting anywhere, I'll go take a break and come back. I'll go, focus on something else for a while before I come back to it and figure out what I'm doing. And I don't say yes to everything. I say yes to the right things. I think a lot of times, we're told, oh, here's an opportunity. If you are being, brought a lot of opportunities and you're afraid to say no because you won't have opportunities later on, find a list of people that you can sponsor and support and bring into these opportunities that you don't feel are the best use of your time at that stage. Let's say you're just busy or, you've got just other things that you have to allocate time to. Think about this, that you are now a sponsor, that you are now lifting or helping others rise as you lift, as you go. I think I said that right, but, helping others. And I think that's really important because people will be more likely to come back to you because they know even if you say no, you will know somebody who can say yes. And market yourself. Don't be afraid to market yourself. Many times in technology, nobody knows what we do except us. I'm sure all of you have gone home and somebody said, can you fix my PC? And you're like, that's not really what I do for a living. It's extremely important to try to help. I believe very much in doing public speaking and blogging and writing articles. I work in a technology that people barely know how to spell the word at Microsoft. They can't spell Oracle. So I have to blog all the time, telling people how to do these things right, how to make the most of this, why the way that marketing may be telling them how to do something is costing us. It's really engaging. I'm recognized by my peers. People that aren't even anywhere near my area will say, oh, Kellyn's the only one that I knows how to do that. You need to contact her. Perception is extremely important. My last couple jobs, I really didn't even have to do a technical interview because they had read my blog. They had seen me present. They had seen the work that I had done. They'd looked at my GitHub repositories and they said, we know you know what you're doing. We just want to talk to you and make sure you're a good fit. And that's really, really cool. And social media, of course, we all know the power of social media. So I think it's extremely important to kind of show, I know what I'm doing and I'm out there. And it kind of shatters some of that glass ceiling too, because you're already out there. They already see what you can do. You don't have to present in a way that folks need to take you past that invisible bias that they may be dealing with. Also know when to pivot. There are times where I have worked through something that was a really great idea, had great vision when it first started, and then went south. This happens. Don't blame yourself. Don't, torture yourself with it. Just accept it, learn from it, move on. And what happened after 2014? A lot. In just these few years, I've moved even faster. I joined Oracle. I did my first keynotes, went around the world and did keynotes with my first mentor, who happens to be my husband as well. I did my first lead author. I wrote STEM curriculum, all in Python for the Oracle Learning Academy. And that was a lot of fun, teaching kids and being able to inspire them. One of my first classes, she was on the cover for a magazine, for the Wired magazine in May 2020. And she ended up going into a technical career, which was not her plan. She was planning on going into design. So I'm really proud of that we can inspire and build others when they see what you can do. I won a Women in Tech Award for the state of Colorado. I was speaking at both the Oracle Open World and Microsoft Summit at the same week. This was a big deal for me, that I got a chance to write the book Crushing the IT Gender Bias, which was my first diversity and inclusion book. And these are things that meant a lot to me. They were a way that I was able to give back to the community that I love and the people in the industry that I adore. I had the chance to start at Microsoft. And one of the most interesting things is that I realized that Oracle many times was an anchor that were holding back people from moving to Azure. So I started moving the Oracle workloads. I was like, you're doing it wrong. Let me show you how to do it. And I had so much work that I needed help. And so my spouse, I recommended him. They said, do you know anybody else who does what you do, who has your skills? And I said, I'm married to him. And they interviewed him and loved him, of course. And then he joined. And he and I are about 80% of the Oracle technologists in our team. And it ended up becoming a role. It wasn't one originally. It was just that we were doing so much and we had so much work that we became Oracle subject matter experts in the cloud architecture and engineering team. And I also took over all the Oracle PM roles. If you go out and look up Oracle on Azure and documentation, you'll see it's owned by DBA Kevlar. That's me, yeah. I own all the documentation, everything, and was awarded twice this year, both the Technology Solution Excellence Award as well as a Microsoft Champion. The Champion Award is only given to 50 people at Microsoft every year, and they gave it to an Oracle person. So it's kind of cool that you can see these little tiny things that don't seem like I'm doing that much. I look back and go, oh my God, I did a lot. I did a lot. It never feels like a lot because I break it down into small pieces. And it goes back to this all the time. Anything you can think of. And I know, because you said earlier that, hey, I feel like I dream too big. You're never dreaming too big. If you can dream about it, start it and break it down into small pieces and just start doing little by little. You'll be surprised what you can achieve. So how do you succeed with perseverance? Do what you're passionate about. If you're passionate about it, you're more likely to stick to it. If you're feeling stuck and can't seem to get into something, this is very much executive dysfunction with ADHD for me. I start something adjacent. I'll start working on anything to get me going, and then I'll pivot myself to what I want to accomplish. I practice and evolve. If I fail, no big deal. I'll just kind of evolve it and keep working. And I learn what works and I keep perfecting. I remove what doesn't work. If something doesn't work, I will be very, very honest and I'll remove it. And then I market myself, as we talked about, and I learn to forgive my mistakes. I just try to make sure that I learn from them and I don't do them again. And I inspire others to be more too, because the more that I can do and the more that they do, the more that we can accomplish. I create a team around me. I have a team of Oracle specialists now at Microsoft that I don't know how I would survive without them because I can't scale without them either. And always be thinking 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years from now. As you're starting to come up with goals, as you're starting to come up with plans and things you do, think about how it works 5 weeks from now. Now look at it from 5 months from now. Now look at it from 5 years from now. Does it have long-term resiliency? Will it survive? And begin the begin. It's not just an REM song. It is also a way of living. Don't procrastinate. Procrastination is definitely the killer. Don't overplan. Don't overthink. Start doing something and don't be afraid so much to fail. It's important to, the whole idea of measure twice, cut once, yes, but think about doing. Even if it isn't what you planned on doing at first, try to get it started and then pivot to what your goals are. Own what you're doing and who you are. Don't be ever afraid of it. So many people want to shape you, and even with mentors, they may want to shape you in a way that they are. Shape with what you want to accomplish. They should be supporting you in your path. And perseverance, it really helps you recover from setbacks too. So if you fail, that you're all right to continue going forward. And never, 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 never give up. Winston Churchill is definitely an idol of mine. The idea that he stated this is extremely crucial. If he had given up, I mean, think about where the world would be today. We might all be speaking German at this point too. Not that I don't, and that I don't like German. And this is my own saying. I have said this for years and years for the folks that I mentor, that you need to find your passion, find your path, and set it on fire. Make it burn so bright that people don't just come to see the flames, but that they'll want to walk in your footsteps before they cool. Many times, what I was doing was not for anything other than me. It was an objective that I wanted to succeed in, and then others followed right behind me. And I think that's crucial of understanding what you build, even if it is just for yourself, may look so attractive that other people say, I want to do it too. There are a number of references at the end of this slide deck you are more than welcome to take and make the most of. I would love it. And we have I think a minute left for questions, but if there's any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat. I'm very happy to answer them. And my contact information is also in the last slide here. Always glad to talk. I will tell you straight out. Twitter, I'm noisy. If you follow me, I'm really sorry. I'd like to apologize first. And then LinkedIn, of course, I'm always glad to connect. I'm out there a lot and putting out stuff.